All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. A few questions here came in. Let's see how far we get with them. First question is it permitted for a non-Jew to collect Social Security? Is it permitted for a Jew? Right? The difference between non-Jew and a Jew. Right? We'll see if there's any difference. Or convert or Social Security disability. And would it be stealing? Right? So not exactly sure what the base of the question is, because if a person, let's say in the States or anywhere else, they pay into Social Security, right? Whether Social Security going to be anything left of it by the time a person needs it, if it's going to go bankrupt or not, who knows, right? But that's part of what you're putting money into, right? You put, money goes towards that. Money goes towards that. So when you retire, right, that's how it works. Normally, when you retire, all things being equal, a person collects Social Security. How much they got to collect, and how much they put in, and how much they're going to take a month, and a lot of different factors. But so the question is, if you put money into it, which certainly in the States, that's where some money's going, right? It's going into Social Security, so why shouldn't you get it back? Why is that considered stealing? You're not what's the word? You are not mooching off the government. It's not like, oh, it's a government thing. It's and you're getting a handout for nothing, right? If a person, let's make clear, if a person lies, commits frauds, and gets money, gets on certain programs, let's say, and a lot of their needs taken care of, but the whole thing is a lie. So that's a different issue, right? They're getting government programs, and government money when they shouldn't. That is a problem. That's Torah prohibition, right? That is a Torah prohibition. It's called stealing, right? Let's say somebody wanted to somebody want to get on government programs. They make too much money, right? Let's say. So what do? They own a house. They put it, they don't put it in their own name, right? The English would say, "Come on, it's a little bit dodgy." It's your house, so you put it in someone else's name, in order that you should show you're making less money, even if it's true, you're making less money. But the problem is, if you own a house, you're less likely, to get, benefits. Depends what it is, right? But if you put it in someone else's name and it really belongs to you, then you're in trouble. That is forbidden, to get benefit from government, from government funding when you don't meet the criteria, right? It's called fudging it. It's called lying. There's a law. I'm going to speak on something else shortly. There's a law called dina dina. Dina dina means it's the law of the land. Now, this whole topic really in and of itself, we are going to flush a few things out from it. But bottom line is you got to do what it says, what the law is. If there are legal loopholes, meaning it's legal to do certain things, right? That's why it's called a legal loophole. If it's legal to do, then there's no questions. If it's legal. If it's not legal to do, then it's a problem. Then for sure it's a problem. And what if it's like neither here nor there? It's okay. You got to be honest. The Torah says you have to be upright. I remember I took a mentorship course, in real estate many years ago, and finding undervalued properties and how to do it, and and all this. And this person was a Jew, a non-Jew, didn't seem so religious, but he was saying, if you're making money, and you're doing deals, don't pull any shtick. He didn't use exactly that language, right? But he's like, don't lie. Do not, forge things. Don't try and hide things. if you have to pay taxes, pay them. You'll be more than happy to pay them because you're making money. Yeah. So that was, kind of interesting. Here you have someone with, with real morals, with real scruples a little bit. Because at the end of the day, people want to hide money. They don't want to pay so much in taxes. Okay. Yeah, but there's what we call the law of the land. The law of the land dictates what you have to do. Now, if there are ways around it, that's legal. That's 100% legal. That's not a problem. That's why it's called a legal loophole. If it's illegal or a little bit dodgy, shouldn't be done. Because what happens if you get caught? See, the problem is it's not even what if you get caught. It's forbidden. It's forbidden. You can't misrepresent over here, right? Someone mentioned, this whole topic in of itself also. You got plenty of illegals in the States getting, stealing Social Security now. How are they getting benefits? Yeah, it's a good question. Very, very good question. They haven't paid into the system, they're getting benefits. That's illegal. That should be illegal. Even for non-Jews, that's stealing. Right? For non-Jews, in the Noahide laws, stealing over here is, even a minor amount that they're liable for death penalty. Right? Even a very, very small amount. So here, they're all liable for death penalty. They're all misrepresenting. They haven't bought into the system, no pun intended. That's it. That's stealing. That's clear. That's clearly stealing. If you paid into the system, even if you didn't make so much money, whatever, but you paid into Social Security, why should you get it? The law of the land states you should get it. Right? You're not misrepresenting anything. If you're lying, that's a different issue. It's always fond of saying, people think, oh, let me try this, let me try that, let me try the other thing. It says, there's a verse in the Torah. The verse in the Torah says, "Medavar sheker tirchak." You're not allowed to lie. They go, really? Where is that? I should make fun. At least some people at least ask the question. I mean, it's kind of pathetic. You think about it. But yeah, in this case, collecting Social Security is not a problem. If you paid, you paid your taxes, you did what you did what you had to do, etc. Why shouldn't you get it? If the whole thing is a lie, right? Let's say someone had an all cash business. So when you have an all cash business, you can declare as much as you want. Now, what's the problem? What's the obvious problem? You got to declare what you made. Can't lie. Can't lie. So what happens if someone only declared what they wanted, and now when they retire, they get a lot back in Social Security? Yeah. If they were going to get money back Social Security anyway, fine. But if they're getting much more than they normally would have gotten because they fudged it, right? They lied how much they made. So they wouldn't have to pay as much in taxes. So that's a different issue. That is misrepresentation. That is fraud. That's forbidden for Jews and non-Jews. Right? Non-Jews, it makes sense. Right? It may come under the laws of dinim, of law courts, setting up law courts. That's where it would come out. You don't have to defraud anybody. Now, everyone got up bright and early, or it's the afternoon or nighttime for some people. You're like, Rabbi, what are you telling me? You're not telling me anything new. You're right. It's not nothing new. It's not anything new over here. This is obvious. It's why non-Jews are liable also. You can't defraud someone. You're not allowed to say this is, pure gold or whatever. And it's not. Or someone buys something and, it's got gold on the side or whatever. So they pay more for it. Very good. And then it comes out first time. I know someone happened to. Came out first time in the washing machine. Whole thing disappeared. Well, I guess it wasn't what they said it was, right? That's fraud. That 100% is fraud. So you got the law of the land. The question is going to be what happens if the law of the land goes against Torah. That's a different issue. A different issue maybe we'll touch on, right? But so in this case, is it forbidden? The question is it forbidden for non-Jew to collect Social Security? No. Or a convert? No, not a problem. or Social Security disability. If it's a legitimate disability, right? It's a legitimate disability, then what's the problem? Right? Somebody points out if you're faking an injury, you shouldn't be getting disability. Right? If you have a real disability, I don't even have a question. It's a non-starter. It's a non-starter question, right? Meaning that if you get disability because you are disabled, then what's the problem? If you're lying about it, right? If you're lying about it, then I hear that would be an issue. But if it's legit, person's got, it's got a real disability. They should be able to collect. I mean, it's not like they're collecting so much anyway, but still, even so, they have a right. According to the law, they have a right to collect if it's real, if it's not real. Right? Right? If it's not real. Somebody points out, it's a good point. You're gonna go through all the hoops to, get disability, you're not getting that much anyway. Right? So it's probably not worth it to do. But most, I don't know what the stats are, so I can't say, but I would hope most people getting disability deserve it. Right? They deserve the disability. Right? So that wouldn't be a problem. That would not be a problem. Would not be considered stealing because it's a legitimate disability. If you're lying and you're faking it, yeah. So that's fraud. Right? But Social Security, person allowed to take. They're definitely allowed to take. Right? As long as they did what they needed to do to get it. What would happen like this? Right? Someone points out, just throw a curveball here. So you got all these illegal migrants in America now, flooding the place. Yeah. So they're getting money through the system. Now the problem is, it should be legal for them. They're not American citizens. How in the world they should be able to take? But the real onus is on the government. If the government says that they're allowed to take, even if they don't have proper Social Security and this and that, because they're seeking asylum, whatever it is, and they allow it, then that's the law of the land. That is the law of the land. That's not, they're getting whatever they're getting, however much they're getting in a legal way because that's the way they set it up. Or that's the way they changed the law, whatever it may be. If that's the case, there's no problem. I ain't gonna tell me, but that's not the way it normally works. Right? You gotta buy into Social Security, no pun intended, in order to get it back. Very good. That's very good. What's the problem? What's the obvious problem? They didn't do it. They showed up in boats and however they got there, and now they're tapping into a system they should be able to tap into. Oh, the only problem is if they make a law and say it's okay and it's permitted, whether they have a Social Security number or not, are they at fault? They're not at fault. Why are they not at fault? Because it's legal. The government allows it. If you tell me the government doesn't allow it and they're buying up Social Security numbers, whatever, when they're stealing, yeah, that's a different issue. But, they have to be pretty ingenious. Got these migrants coming, probably don't know too many people, in America. And all of a sudden they say, yeah, here's my Social Security number. Like, yeah, that would be kind of fishy. That would be extremely fishy. That I hear. Right? That I hear. But if they pass a law, what's the problem? What's the problem? The government allows it. Right? Someone's backing me up here. Good. The government allows it. If the government allows it, can I take advantage of something the government allows? Yeah. Why not? Came to COVID. We won't, we'll go into COVID. People, if you had American citizenship, you file taxes, you get a stimulus check or a couple of stimulus checks. Is that illegal? Why is that illegal? You're American. They're giving money out, for however many people you have in your family and whatever, different things. You can apply for it. And if you're accepted, they get however much you get. Would that be illegal? Why is that illegal? Filled out all the paperwork. A person is American, doesn't matter where they live, right? So you fill out all the paperwork, and if they approve it, what's the problem? Why can't you take advantage of that? You're allowed to take advantage of that. That's not a problem. That's not a problem, right? Even if you live overseas. So now if someone points out, which, now we'll see how this applies, God's above the government, right? God's above everything. God's the one in control, 100%. Question's going to be, what happens if the law of the land goes against Torah? That's the question. So you don't have to listen to the law of the land. Oh, you might be put in jail, this, that, but you have to do whatever you can to uphold what Torah says. Now that gets to the second question. Right? Second question here is, one second. Yeah, we'll go. There are two parts of this question. First part of the question: the person is the victim of a crime. Right? Person is the victim of a crime. Another person came to him or her, assaulted him. Okay, let's say someone took advantage of someone else. I can't imagine it ever happening, but let's say someone commits assault against somebody else, and what are they doing? They're squeezing them. They're squeezing them for money. Maybe, I don't know, put a hit on their family. They'll burn their house down. I don't know. Whatever it is, they seem to have very strong control over here. Of their finances. Other things, maybe they have to give bribes. They have to give kickbacks. Got these gangs for person has a business. And they say, listen, we want a certain amount a month, right? You get a mafia, certain amount a month. You don't pay it. We're gonna burn your place down. We're gonna, kill your family, whatever. So let's say such a case like that. So they threaten them. They follow them around. Right, they seem to be in control, right, in control of their finances or trying to control their finances in different ways, right, and threatening them, right? That's a scenario. Now, what's the question? Sounds like a bad situation. Yeah, but what's the question? Can that person declare bankruptcy from the pain and suffering that's still on you? Right, and the follow-up question is, non-Jew or converts filed for bankruptcy in the past. Before they decided to convert, is it stealing or permissible? So the question now gets into what's the law of the land, right? Let's understand what the law of the land is, and then what is the Jew obligated to do, right? Does the law of the land go according to what Jewish law says over here? So before, what would happen? Right, what would happen? Let's get to the first question. First question is, they're being threatened, can they declare bankruptcy? Now, the problem is that if you owe somebody money, right, what happened way back when? Right, way back when, what happened? Person, let's say, had a loan, they couldn't pay a loan. What happened to them? They went to prison. They were the one called debtor's prison over here. So now they don't have debtor prison anymore, at least I think in most places. So what do? So they have bankruptcy. You can declare bankruptcy. Now, again, the question is going to be, is declaring bankruptcy a valid option if you owe money? If Reuven owes Shimon $1,000, oh, let's make it better. You owe them $100,000. You borrowed $100,000. Whatever you use it for, let's say use it for his business. Business went under. And probably more common case. His business went under. Now, Shimon comes to Reuven and says, I don't care to declare bankruptcy. You owe me the money. Now, what does bankruptcy do? It allows for a person or a corporation, they have to submit all their assets to court. They liquidate the assets and distribute it to the creditors. What if there's not enough to go around? Right? So they'll have to see. The person declares, let's say they declare Chapter 11, right? Chapter 11 allows the debtor to remain, as an ongoing concern by reducing the amount of debt, right? They try to reduce the debt, right, as much as they can. But in either case, what's the law? The law is the debtor is free from any additional liability. Now, it might kill your credit, right? Certainly in the States, 8 years, you declare bankruptcy. You destroy your credit. When I lost all my money many years ago, that's what someone claimed. I said, why don't you just declare bankruptcy? I said, yeah, if I come back to the States and I declare bankruptcy, I'm toast. I said, I'll never get a loan, I'll never get a car, I'll never get anything. 8 years, credit shot, right? 8 years. I mean, listen, a person's in dire straits. You got no choice. Okay, right? But what's the law, right? Let's analyze what the law is first. The law is that you do not have any other liability, right? According to the law, you don't have any other liability, right? Even if you get money back. Let's say you lost all this money. You can't pay your creditors. And then, you start another business. You build yourself up. Now you got plenty of money. Do you have to go back and pay it? According to the laws of bankruptcy say, if you subsequently recover, you don't have to pay it. You don't have to pay the debt at all. That's according to the law. Now, what's the underlying theory here, right? What would be the underlying theory? That someone will lend somebody, let's say, I don't know, get merchandise, let's say, and we gave a lot of merchandise, done business with them. In the back of their minds, could they lose that? Could that person ever declare bankruptcy? Could. Very well could. Right? But the end result is that even though creditors can lose, what's the end result? It should be beneficial. In other words, if a debtor is liable for his overwhelming debts, what's going to happen? He'll never recover. He'll never recover. Right? In other words, you're trying to make a living, but you got all these debts to pay. Right? So the money you're going to end up paying is not going to living expenses, just paying other people you owe money to. Right? That person will stay in debt forever. Won't get out of it. I mean, it depends how much and all that. And then you got to rely on the government. That's certainly not going to be good. You're giving a person an opportunity. I mean, this is the theory behind it. You're giving a person an opportunity to start again, become a productive member of society, start again, whitewash the whole thing, and you start from scratch, right? So that's really the theory, theory behind it. And not only that, you get Chapter 11 still allows people to, to have jobs or whatever, before they totally fold. So it gives them an opportunity to try and bring themselves back or whatever. Very good. So according to that, in secular law, even if you made money later, the creditors come and say, hey, I see, you're doing better. You should pay me back. So they say, no, dina, it's the law of the land. I don't have to pay you back. I don't have to pay you back. I declared bankruptcy. I'm exempt over here. That's the law of the land. What about Jewish law? So a person owes money, Torah obligation to repay it back. Right? Totally pay it back. If you can't pay the whole thing, you pay in installments, whatever it is. But you got an obligation to pay it back. Now, there is sensitivity. The person who borrowed doesn't have the means to repay. But the Torah doesn't have a mechanism set up called bankruptcy that would totally discharge you from it. In other words, Reuben owes Shimon money, I don't know, $30,000. He doesn't have the money to pay back. So Shimon declares bankruptcy. Question is, he's still liable. According to Jewish law, he's still liable. There's no such thing as bankruptcy in Jewish law. That doesn't exist. So even though the law of the land says that they're going to allow a debtor to discharge his debts because he's got no other choice, it would not absolve a Jew of his halachic obligation to pay it back. In other words, just because the law of the land says he's exempt, he's exempt according to Jewish law. Right, but people are going to say, that's the law of the land. The law of the land allows me. The law of the land allows me to do this. That is legal. Yeah. The question is what the parameters are. What the parameters are over here. So you got a Jew who violates these laws in violation of Jewish law as well. First of all, doesn't go against Jewish law. You violate it. You violate a Torah prohibition of going after the law of the land. And there are probably many other halachic things that you transgress. You transgress as well. So there are different views over here. Right? One is maybe it's only talking about something critical for a government to function. Taxes, I don't know, currency, maybe, currency regulation, other regulations, maybe import, export, type of regulations. So if a person evades taxes and he's a Jew, that's a federal offense. But not only that, you're liable according to Jewish law as well. Right? So this is a little more limiting, but that's one opinion. Second opinion is it applies to any legislation that helps society function. So this is a little more expansive over here. Third opinion is it's limited where it does not directly contradict an existing law. If it doesn't contradict, right, then we say it's less of an issue. Right? It's still limited over here. Now the question is if the law of the land says I can do this. Right? Does it violate any other prohibition? Does it violate, any other Torah prohibition? Right? Or not? In other words, where does bankruptcy go? Where does it fall in the bigger scheme of things when we're talking about Jewish law? Right? So, first of all, if we're looking at the law of the land, it goes against the first opinion. Right? That'll go for the first opinion. That if it's critical for government to function and all that, we'll go against that. Also, permanent discharge of loans is in direct contradiction to Torah law. Because what does the Torah say? Torah said you got to pay it back. You owe someone money, you got to pay it. However, you got to pay it. Installments, whatever, you have to pay it. 100%. But these laws, in the bigger scheme of things, why do they have these laws? For society. In order for society to function. So therefore, it would seem that bankruptcy could be valid, according to one of these opinions. But again, is it a benefit for society, in this case? So if these laws are abused, let's say someone, they borrow money to do this, to do that, and then they declare bankruptcy. It's very convenient. Someone sets up a business, maybe the whole thing is a fraud, right? Sets up a business, not really a real company. There's that, gets a few people to invest. Let's say a significant amount of money. Person skips time, then declares bankruptcy. That's abusing the system. That's for sure abusing the system, right? That is causing someone to be reckless, and that the Torah can't have. Cannot be reckless, over here. So it would seem also, according to this, that it would go against one of these principles that you'd have to pay back. Doesn't matter what the law of the land is, right? In that case, you still have to pay back. Also there's a question. It gets a little more complicated, but I think it's important to flush out here. There's something that we call minhag hasoichrin. Now, what is minhag hasoichrin? The custom of business, right? Customary business practice. So sometimes local law, and again, it depends what the case is. We're just talking in generalities. Sometimes a local law or a local custom can supersede Jewish law. Now, what's the reason? You're going to say, but Jewish law is Jewish law. That should never happen, maybe. Right? Maybe that would be the case. Right? But the reality is what? The reality is you have two people have an agreement. Right? They have a contract. Even better. They have a contract, signed contract. Now, they have this agreement. This agreement goes according to what? What we call minhag hasoichrin. It goes according to customary business practice. right? Customary practice, whatever it is. I remember sitting in the rabbinical court many times with my Rebbe, and a lot of times certain cases came in, they said, you have to find out what goes on outside. What goes on in the marketplace? Is it done like this? Is it done like that? You have to find out. You have to find out what the custom is. What's customary business practice, right? This is very common, when it comes to, let's say, the laws of damage. Very, very common, right? What do you do? What do people do? Not a question goes against Jewish law or not. It says, what's the custom? Right? Now, if either of the parties had in mind to go against it or to uproot it, let's say one of them wants to go against a certain thing. So they have to tell the other party, right? They have to be in agreement over here. There has to be a stipulation over there. Now, it could be, let's say, two people are in a country where bankruptcy is legal. So if they make an agreement, isn't that something that could happen? Something could happen, right? You hope it doesn't happen, but in theory, it's out there to protect people, right? We saw it. It's a benefit to society. Why? Because if someone is saddled with all that debt, they can't start fresh. What's going to happen is, the interest on what they owe, or even if there's no interest, whatever they owe is like insurmountable, because now they have to start from scratch, whatever, and it's going to take, a chunk, a huge chunk, if they're making any profit, how are they going to live? It's simple math. If you're making less than what you owe, that's never good, right? You're in a deficit. You don't want to be in a deficit over here. Now, the question is going to be, do we say that the law of the land can uproot or nullify something in Jewish law? So there was a question a couple hundred years ago. I think about a couple hundred years ago, it was a question like this. There were a group of creditors. Majority of creditors willing to extend payments. In other words, debtor owed money. Shimon owes money to Reuven, and Reuven's cutting him a lot of slack to pay it back. But the problem is, there's another creditor, and the other creditor didn't want. He wanted what he put in. He wanted what he owed. But so he wanted what, according to Jewish law, he's obligated to pay. Not according to what goes on out there. He wants to know what, according to Jewish law. What's the din? What is the halacha over here? Right? So the Mashach over here learns that the custom among the merchants was what? That you go according to the majority. Majority could force the minority for a compromise. Right? But not the other way around. So therefore, local custom trumps over here. Local custom, that's how you go. That's how you govern it. And the loan creditor has to acquiesce. He's got no choice. Go after the majority. Go after the majority. Now, can the custom of, here's another interesting question, just flush this out a little bit more. What about the custom of the day? What goes on? What goes on out there? Yeah. Can you force a creditor to accept it? Can you force it? Now, there is what to be said, the Mashach over here says, there is what to be said that if you have a local custom, that maybe a local custom can discharge the entire debt. That's what bankruptcy does, essentially. It discharges the entire debt. Yeah. So if that would be the case, then what does according to local custom states bankruptcy discharges the person from ever paying back. Doesn't matter. I mean, the novelty is he starts another business, he gets an inheritance, he's living the life of Riley, right? He's kicking back, sipping pina coladas, everything's great. You're gonna say, what do you mean? You're sipping pina coladas, living the life, you owe me money. Bankruptcy, you don't touch him, right? According to local custom. But you can tell me that maybe it's only by a company. Yeah, what about personal bankruptcy? Person themselves, like someone told me, to declare bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy, not business. Right? Not business over here. So it could be, according to that, personal bankruptcy is not common enough to qualify as a custom. Therefore, they'd have to pay it back, right? It does. It's you wouldn't be exempt over here. So here, we're talking about what do you call it? Here in general, we're talking about corporations, but just to end off this topic, Moshe Feinstein, one of the Torah giants, the last generation, in America, according to everybody, Moshe Feinstein now that bankruptcy is valid according to the law of the land. Right? Goes according to the second opinion over here. According to the law of the land, bankruptcy rules, right? You don't have to pay it back. Right? But also there's no question in that response about asset allocation. Doesn't mean permanent discharge. Doesn't mean 100% has to pay anything. Right? But he seems to say when the government has a vested interest, then that's covered. Right? If they want to be consistent over here, that's covered by the law of the land. Other rabbinical authorities hold no. They say bankruptcy is based on common practice, not necessarily about vested interest, not a vested interest, whatever. The problem is, it isn't necessarily so universal, right? There's this conclusion over here. So there is a dissenting opinion, and some say that the law of the land is limited, and that's only in areas critical to the government. So that would reject the fact that the person who clears bankruptcy, what does it do with government, right? So that would sort of knock that out. Even if, according to Moshe Isserles, that he holds that it rejects bankruptcy. Why? Because it's not beneficial to society to allow people to default, right? It doesn't look so good. Society, anyone can default and they don't have to pay anything, right? Nonetheless, others say no, that it wasn't necessarily such a positive thing, for the economy in general, and it goes against clear Jewish law. So here we're talking again. What's the case? The case is talking about somebody who has a legitimate claim. He's got a legitimate claim, for bankruptcy. If a debtor, someone who owes money over here, right? In other words, they are declaring bankruptcy in order that the creditors don't take certain things. They want to keep it for themselves. For whatever reason, obviously, you can't do that, right? That would be forbidden. You can't declare bankruptcy just to avoid the creditors, right? That's that everyone would agree, right? According to Jewish law, that would be wrong, right? So that's debtor's liability, still remains. The question is how far you take it. How far you take it. On one hand, you could say the Torah says you borrow money or you borrow merchandise, you got to pay it back, right? You got to pay it back. Now, the question is, but what about the law of the land? The law of the land dictates you don't have money to pay it back and you declare bankruptcy. The law of the land dictates that's the case. This comes up very common, unfortunately, and that is credit card debt. Credit card debt, what do you have? Let's say a person, takes out a lot of money in a credit card or pays minimal amount and then just racks up all these charges because, they need the money, whatever it is. And now they can't pay it back. So now what happens? Now you start getting phone calls. You ignore the phone calls, then you get debt collection agencies calling you, right? They're trying to at least get you to pay some of it, right? They're trying to make a deal over here, right? Pay some of it. And let's say you can't, you elude them. So in the States, I don't know if it works in other places, in the States is what we call a statute of limitations. Statute of limitations means that they can only get in each state, not every state has the same amount of years, right? And in some states, it could be 5 years, it could be 7 years. But after a certain amount of time, there's a limitation of how they can go after you for the money. So basically, let's say it's 5 years. And now you get different collection agencies bothering you trying to get the money or trying to get some money. And let's say you push them off because you don't have the money. You don't want to make a deal with them because you don't have money. So what do? So let's say the time period expires. Let's say in this state it's 5 years. Now, if a collection agency comes after the person after that time, you could sue them. You could absolutely sue them. No right to come after you because it's a statute of limitations. Now, what would happen? Let's say you have significant credit card debt, which a lot of people unfortunately do, and it ruins them because they can't pay it back, and then they get all this interest or whatever. So what happens? So what happens over here? Let's say you hit a windfall. Business picks up, everything's great. 7 years go by, right? 7 years go by. 7 years go by, and they come after, they can't come after you anymore, but now you have money. And now you have money to pay it back. Is there an obligation to pay it back? So we just said, now you didn't declare, let's say you didn't declare bankruptcy. Really, in theory, you should pay it back. But what's the law of the land? What does the law of the land tell you? This is statute of limitations. Statute of limitations means they can't come after you after that. Do I have to go with Nim Din beyond the letter of the law and pay it back when the law itself says you don't have to pay it back? So what's the answer? What's the answer? You don't have to pay it back. Do I have to go beyond the letter of the law? No, you're exempt. Now, how's it look in God's eyes? You have to wait to get upstairs after 120 years. But according to the law of the land, I would say you're exempt. You're exempt. So we've spoken about this before, in the sense that, a person was in dire straits, whenever they borrow money, they have no idea where the money is going to come from to pay it back. Yeah. So that would be reckless to do. Right? But you're desperate. Yeah. So some people borrow money, they have no choice. And they'll do whatever they can to try and pay it back. Let's say they can't. Are you allowed to borrow money in a case where you don't know you're going to pay it back? The answer is no. You're really not allowed to. But the person in dire straits, they feel like they have no choice. Whatever. So some people do things, they shouldn't do. If they got a plan how they're going to pay it back, okay. If they have a solid plan, or you have 3 different plans or whatever, right? How are you going to do it? And even let's say you can't do it. You make up, the person you owe the money, okay, can I pay this amount? Can I pay that amount till you finally pay the whole amount? Something like that. But this is serious responsibility. There's some people out there like to roll the dice. I'll borrow for this, I'll borrow for that, or this time I'll borrow for this one to pay that one to pay that one. Eventually it gets up to you. If not so easy to find people to borrow from and other things. It's definitely not a way to live. Sometimes a person may feel they have no choice. They just, a person got stuck. A person definitely got stuck. It's an onus. Even if it's an onus, it's like against their will. They didn't want to do it, but they felt they had no choice. Yeah, so that's definitely what happens with credit card debt. Who's interested in racking up charges and not being able to pay it back? Now, there are people that, like we said before, someone may borrow money or borrow, money for merchandise, for other things, and they have no intention of paying it back. Yeah, obviously that's stealing. So what do? They take a ton of money, right? They get a ton of money. They got this company, it's really a shell, there's really nothing to the company, and they leave town. They skip town with a lot of money. Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It happens. I mean, it has happened. It sure has happened. Yeah. So if a person borrows, they have to know. They have to have some sort of way in order to pay it back. It's kind of irresponsible if you don't. Doesn't mean the person doesn't get stuck or whatever. They had a plan, it fell through. Whatever it is. In this case, though, statute of limitations gone. So I don't have a problem. Right? I don't have to go beyond the letter of God, beyond the letter of the law to pay it when there's no obligation. Over here, there's no obligation. They can't go after you anymore. Yeah, I'm not saying this is a great thing to do, right? But that is the law. I mean, it changes state by state. In America, how many years? Some it's 4 years, some it's 5 years, some it's longer. But even if you come into money, you don't have to pay it. Right? That's what we saw before. So bankruptcy is a legitimate thing, according to the letter of the law. Definitely is. Let's get back to the question here. Right? The question was, person's chasing after them. trying to take their money, whatever, can declare bankruptcy. I'm not sure how bankruptcy is going to help in such a case. The person's still going to dog you and say, well, what can I do? I have no money. If that would end the problem, it is the problem to declare bankruptcy for such a reason. If you got creditors and this and that, and you're not making ends meet, everything's caving in, that's a different issue. But if you do it because someone's chasing after you, even illegally, doesn't matter, right? You don't necessarily have a right to do that. You're not getting out of the problem of other people you owe money to, but you wouldn't have done it otherwise, right? If you wouldn't have done it otherwise, it gives you the right to do it. You should have the right to do it, right? That's what I would say on on that part of the question, right? Can they declare bankruptcy for the pain and suffering if they're still a non-Jew? Again, even for a non-Jew, as a Jew, if it's legal to declare bankruptcy in such a way, then it'll be legal. But if you're doing it to push someone off because they're chasing you and this and that, who says you have a right to do that, right? I would think you don't have a right to do that. You can only declare bankruptcy in cases where you're allowed to, not where you're not allowed to. This is the fact of putting pressure and this and that. Who says other people have to suffer because of it? You wouldn't have declared bankruptcy otherwise, right? I don't think you have a right to do that. That was the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, are they stealing? Right? If, let's say, again, does the non-Jew have the same obligation to pay something back? I think that's universal. John borrows $100 from Joe. Joe says, I want the money. He says, sorry, I'm going to declare bankruptcy. I don't have any money to pay you. This is a pretty clear prohibition. You owe someone money, you have to pay it. However you have to pay it, whatever the conditions are, that you make, you have to pay it. So, it's a non-Jew over here, right? Or a convert, even if they filed for bankruptcy in the past. A non-Jew, again, it's the law of the land as well. They also have law courts. They also have law courts according to their laws, according to the Noahide laws, as well. If bankruptcy is permissible, then it's permissible. Then it shouldn't be an issue. If they declare bankruptcy where they're not allowed to, and they're just doing it to hold on to other things, that's forbidden. That 100% would be forbidden. Right? So it depends. Depends on the case. Over here, if they had a legitimate reason to declare bankruptcy, that's not a problem. If they didn't have a good reason to declare bankruptcy, trying to push someone off, whatever, so that's a problem. That would be stealing you owe the money. Right? That's what I would say. It is complex, but it's based on two premises. One premise is the fact that Torah says you borrow money, you're gonna pay it back. You don't have the money, figure out a way to pay it back. Right? You owe the money, you're gonna pay it. And then the question is, if you don't have money and you declare bankruptcy, does the letter of the law absolve you 100% according to the Torah if you can't pay it back? So we saw it. Some say 100%, some say less than that. But if it's done properly, you're really exempt, right? Simply according to this, you should be exempt. Yeah, someone asks, one second here. Yeah, someone asks, we don't have to pay taxes, can't get around that, right? Two things that guarantee the life, death and taxes. Not necessarily in that order. How do you deal with how our taxes are used? That's not your problem. That is not your problem. Right? Whatever they're used for, even if it's not your choice, it's not your choice. What are you going to do? Not pay taxes? You got to pay taxes. Right? Here, in certain places, you pay, let's say, municipal tax. Pay, people who rent, right? And interesting in Israel, the renter pays the taxes on the apartment or the house, right? That they're renting. They pay it. Now, what happens if that municipality uses it for all kinds of garbage? All kinds of garbage really forbidden according to Torah. Yeah. Still gonna pay it. Still gonna obligate. That's not your issue, right? If you got a discount because you don't make enough money, okay. So then, if you don't make enough money and you got a discount and you got a significant discount, fine. If you're gonna get a discount because you don't want your money going there, but it's not really true, then that's a problem. And that would be definitely a problem of stealing. But what they're going to use the money for, that's not my problem. That's not my issue. Whatever they use it for, they use it for. I'm not held accountable. A Jew or non-Jew will not be held accountable paying taxes, and they use that tax money for, to build soccer stadiums, build football stadiums, to do other things that wouldn't go necessarily in the ways of Torah. Do I have to worry about that? I don't have to worry about it. It's out of my hands. Right? If I had the ability to change it, yeah, that'd be one thing, but you don't have the ability to change it. So it's not a problem. It's not a prohibition. You're not held accountable. If a person who lent the money died, should the borrower pay back the money? Right? Pay back the family. Yeah. It should, definitely the money should go back to the family, right? To whoever the inheritors are, right? It should go back to them. There is a question the other way. Let's say the father owed money to somebody. And the father died. Do the children have an obligation to pay the debt? Right? So many times we say the legs of the children are like to the father. So they should pay it back. I had a friend of mine told me that it wasn't him, it was I think someone else that he knew said, yeah, when my father died, said, you know what my inheritance was? I said, what was that? He said, $350,000 of debt. That's what he inherited. So yeah, there's they can go to the kids. Gemara's talking many cases where someone owed money, they go to the kids. They go, what if the kids are younger? So they have someone, they have a guardian, guardian that helps protect them, till they grow up. And there are a lot of claims. Oh, your father owed me money, right? But when this person claims father borrowed money, the person was a child. Child doesn't normally know the business dealings, of his parents and of his father. So whatever. There are a lot of cases when you can collect what you can collect from, what you can collect from, right? But seemingly the person who owes the money. Person who owes the money died. They can go to the children. They can go to the inheritance, for that. But in your case, should you go back? Sure, right? If Shimon has an obligation to pay Reuven dies, so you got to pay his family. Family has to get the money. Right? There would be an obligation. Person dies, family could probably need the money. It could be. Even if they don't need the money, it doesn't matter. If they forgive the debt, let's say they forgive the debt, so then you wouldn't have to pay it. But seemingly, if you should pay it, 100%, right? You should pay the family. Someone asks if Israel is a Jewish state, which it is in theory. How's the balance between the laws of Tanakh, i.e. Torah, that's what you mean, and the government? That's a real problem, right? Because this government, any government, since the founding of the state, does not go according to Jewish law. This is a serious problem. This is a serious problem for a lot of things. For a lot of things. And that's why there's a whole question, if there's a law of the land, there's different opinion, whether there's the law of the land in Israel or not. Doesn't that, in other words, if they make decrees and different things, do I have an obligation to listen to it if it goes against, Torah law? Right? So some will say it doesn't have status over here. Doesn't have status of the law of the land. So if it doesn't have status of the law of the land, I don't have to listen. Right? So I always say, yeah, if we get stopped by the police, driving too fast or whatever, say, I don't recognize you. You can't speak to me. I don't recognize. See, you can't see me. What's the police gonna say? Hey, what are you, an idiot? I'm giving you a ticket. Yeah, you're getting a ticket. Yeah. So there are people that that will say that the government is so corrupt in what they do in many ways. They'll do whatever they can to hide money because it goes against Torah law and they're squeezing people and doing things illegally. Other people will say, no, you got to pay, you got to do what you got to do, and that's it. You're not allowed to go against, right? There are major differences of opinion here. Exactly, the state of Israel. Some people will say, absolutely, you don't pay taxes, you try and pay as little as possible, to clear as little as possible, this, that, and why. Some would say, because of what they do, in many ways, what they do, you're allowed to do that. Other rabbinic authorities say, no, you're not allowed to do that. Right? They say it's it's the law of the land. You got to do it. You got to keep it. You got to keep it. It is it's a little bit complex, right? But that's the heart of the discussion. That's the heart of the discussion here in Israel. But yeah, there are a lot of things that I'll give an example. A person buys a piece of property. Yeah, they buy a house. They buy an apartment, whatever it is. You get it on lease. The government owns all the land, right? I mean, it's like a third world country in different ways. Government owns all the land. Yeah, so you're like leasing the land from them. You might pay $500,000, right? You might pay a lot of money for an apartment or for a house, but you got a 99-year lease. Now, technically, that 99-year lease always gets renewed, right? It's in the law books, even though there's no constitution here. It's in the law books that, they're not taking it away from you. Unless the bank takes it away from you, you can't pay it, pay the mortgage or whatever. But you get a 99-year lease. Who's going to put down $100,000 or $200,000 or more, and you don't really own it? I mean, you do. It's legal in the municipality, all things being equal. That's what the lawyer does. They make sure there are no liens on it. There are no problems with the property, right? You get it for 99 years, and then it's automatic renewal. That doesn't sound so nice. Yeah. Even if you tell me it's $100,000, but you don't really own it. It's a joke in a certain way, right? That's what people do. You want to own, that's what you got to do, right? So yeah, the law of the land in Israel, that's a huge topic. You got rabbanim, rabbis on both sides, right? And each side has, they have, each side has its value. Each side has its value, but that's the heart of the discussion, whether you hold that the land of Israel has the law of the land or not. We say the law of the land or not. Why are the 10 days of repentance only 3? No, 10 days of repentance start from Rosh Hashanah. 10 days of repentance start from Rosh Hashanah. So from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, there are 10 days. But really, the 10 days of repentance, you would tell me, starts from Tzom Gedalia, the fast. The fast after the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Right? So then you got 3-4 days in between, then you got Yom Kippur. So it's not really 10, but they're counting, the rabbis are counting 10 days of repentance starting from Rosh Hashanah. Even though we don't repent on Rosh Hashanah. There is no repentance on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is about making God king, but the 10 days of repentance, it's a little bit of a misnomer. But the 10 days of repentance start from when? Start from Rosh Hashanah. That's how you get 10 days. Let me see. There are other questions here. Interesting question. You can fight this. Someone asked, they're out of the country, Verizon was supposed to put their phone on hold, and now they say, $2,000. Now, I would fight it. I would definitely fight it. Listen, if they agreed, obviously very good to get it in writing, but if they agreed in writing, they got nothing to talk about. Right, but if they agreed that you'd be exempt because you were in the army, then for sure you shouldn't have to pay. That is something definitely, something worthwhile to fight for, because they said that. If you got it in writing, even better. But if you don't have it in writing, they said we're going to uphold that, and they didn't. Yeah, I mean, you go back to the army or whatever, wherever you were, and you get them to fight it. Why not? If they have a legal agreement with them, then they should be able to help you on that. Even if you're not using the phone. Someone asked, why are they allowing Arabs to build houses? That's archaeological sites, the Jericho land of Benjamin. Let me ask a different question. Why do they allow Arabs to own land in Israel? It's a Torah prohibition. It's an absolute Torah prohibition. Forget where they build and listen, you know how much they've been digging under the Temple Mount for years. Why they allow them to do that? They shouldn't be allowed to do that for sure. Who knows what they've been digging up and whatever. But there's a Torah prohibition. Non-Jews are not allowed to own land in Israel. Torah prohibition. Not allowed to even rent out land to them. So they don't have their own neighborhood. Very good. So what happens? They don't hold of it. Right? You're going to tell me archaeological sites? Who cares? Archaeological sites, non-archaeological sites. Put them in the Negev, put them down south. There's plenty of land there. Plenty of land just doing nothing. Yeah. It'd be forbidden to sell them there also. You want to say it's worse on an archaeological site? Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think it's kind of ironic, that the holiest place of the world, they allowed the Arabs to put a mosque up there on the Temple Mount, right? And they have free reign to do whatever they want. When they came in the 6-Day War and they took over the old city, what was the first thing they did? They felt bad for the Arabs. So they gave them the keys. They gave the keys to the Harabais, the Temple Mount. That was a mistake. That was a big mistake. Yeah, not that Jews are allowed to go up there, but they got they got a mosque right on top of it, even if you hold it's not idolatry. That's kind of disgusting. The holiest place in the world, right? Okay, so if they're digging in, and they're digging up in the holiest place in the world, no one seems to care about it. Well, they've been digging up there for years. But at the end of the day, you're right. If it's on an archaeological site, a holy site, that'd be worse. I agree. But who says they're allowed to have land anywhere? It's not just on an archaeological site. Okay, that maybe is a little bit worse. But if they're not allowed to sell land to them anyway, right? They're not allowed to be anywhere. They could be. I don't care. They could be in the Negev down south. All these empty areas. Let them be there. It's still forbidden. 100% forbidden to sell any land to a non-Jew. Someone asked me this question a while ago. That property, they just wanted to dump it, get rid of it. And who wanted to buy the property? Arabs. You can't sell it to them. Even if you're going to take a loss, you cannot sell it to them. Forbidden. It's total prohibition. Why does the government allow it? Because they're secular Jews and they don't care. That's why they allow it. It's not right by any stretch, but you're not allowed to sell it to them. Not allowed to sell it to them. Somebody asked the fast and get out a 25-hour fast, morning to night. Yes, it's morning to night. You can get up in the middle of the night before, an hour before the sun comes up. You can eat. It's sun up to sundown. It's not sundown to sundown. There are only two fasts that are sundown to sundown, and that is Yom Kippur and the 9th of Av. Fast of the 9th of Av. Yeah. Any other questions? What goes on? I'll just say like this. What goes on in the land of Israel, so many things go against Torah. And if it wouldn't be Orthodox Jews, this place would look no different than anywhere else. You just have a lot of Jews together. You know what they say? Jews, you put them in every other country, Jews are successful. You put them in one country, it's a disaster. It's been a disaster for a long time. It's better now than like it's really been, ever been. There's been a lot of bureaucracy throughout the year, tremendous amount of bureaucracy, and they kept evaluating money. It's people make a lot less money here, and it's very expensive to live here. It's someone told me it's expensive to live anywhere. You're right. Here it's interesting. Housing prices, because the supply and demand, certainly in the Orthodox community, gone up exponentially, and you're living like in a war zone. Like, doesn't make sense. People say, yeah, it's going to go down eventually. That's what people say, but it's supply and demand. People want to live in certain places, so if there are fewer places available, and they're not building, so prices are going to go through the roof, right? It's mind-boggling, and I see all the time, especially where I live. It's one of the fastest growing, poorest communities, in Israel, and everybody and their mother are adding on to their apartments as much as they can, either like to try and rent out a place or part of it or whatever. And it's like, great, where are people getting this money from? So it's like someone told me, that married off his kids, took out a mortgage, a mortgage from his house. So how many times can you do that? Whatever. It's very hard. It's that's what Satmar Rebbe said was the greatest miracle in Israel was not the 6-Day War. The greatest miracle is how the Orthodox Jews marry off the kids. You make a lot less money here, no question, and everything stays the same. Prices keep going up. Okay, health insurance is less. A lot of people, don't necessarily need to have cars, even though gas is like $8 a gallon. I mean, it's crazy. Crazy not to mention food prices are up, just like they're up, everywhere else. But that's the biggest joke. How do you make $1 million? How do you make $1 million in Israel? You bring 2 million with you, right? But it's why price is so high? Real estate so high because again, supply and demand. Supply and demand. Yeah, it's someone asks. I guess it'll be the last question because I have to go in a second. Are all judged only after 20 years? Some, again, when does someone get judged? Someone get punished at the age of 12 or 13 or till the age of 20. Where do they get punished at the age of 13? Doesn't mean it has to be till 20, right? Doesn't mean it, it absolutely has to be. But but some do say, yeah, even though you could start getting punished at the age of 13 when you become an adult, according to Judaism, as a man, and 12 as a woman, right? Some hold that you still have an interim period up until the age of 20. Right, but the first judgment will start, once you hit that age. Someone asked, doesn't Israel have their own oil? So Israel gets their, no pun intended, their oil goes through China, right? It goes all the way around. They don't have their own oil. So like it goes, even though this is where it comes from the Middle East, it has to go through 4 or 5 different places before it gets there. So the tax is very high. But it's funny, you go on the road, you see electric cars here, but you would think, gas is $8 a gallon, and you're gonna say, wow, there must be fewer cars on the road. Nope. Still pretty packed. It's pretty, it's crazy. Not to mention, insurance or whatever. It's more of a convenience, definitely more of a convenience than anything else. In a lot of cities you don't need a car, especially in Jerusalem and the other areas, you don't need a car. Right? Bus system's very good. It's very, very good. So, but yeah, people have, for convenience, but it's crazy. I remember people in the States complaining it's like $5 a gallon. I was like, yeah, I'd love it to be $5 a gallon. $5 a gallon, I'd be like doing the jitterbug. Like, come on. It's 8.5, a liter. So sorry, a gallon. So it's like, I don't know, about 7 shekels a liter. So it multiply by 4. So it's like, it's like $8 a gallon. It's crazy. Anyway, I gotta run now, so I'm gonna stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday. 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I have videos on Q&As, Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, Torah portion of the week, controversial issues. Anyone want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, or RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com.